Senator Clifford has one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also have a point of personal privilege, if you would allow me.
Okay, yeah, we can do that first.
Introduction first, sir. RS 0478. This is, you've seen before, the Pete Cones Memorial Act regarding jailhouse testimony.
Okay. Committee, any questions or objections to introduction of that bill? Seeing none, that bill is introduced. Any other bill introductions? We have Senator Owens here this morning gracing us. Welcome to
I don't know about that, but thank you,
yes.
Mr. Chair. I have two bills to request introduction of. The first is 25 RS 0854, which bans genetic sequencers in Kansas hospitals and medical facilities that are made from our foreign adversaries. So genetic sequencers, DNA sequencers that are made from countries that are foreign adversaries.
Very good. Committee, any questions or objections to introduction of that bill? Seeing none, that one's introduced.
And then 25 RS 0632 corrects part of our statute as it relates to the disposition of firearms from our law enforcement officers. There's current statutes, and within our civil asset forfeiture statute, there's a conflict. And so this addresses that conflict.
Okay. Committee, any questions or objections to introduction of that bill? Seeing none, that bill's introduced.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Sure thing. Any other bill introductions? I do have one, which is 25 RS 0821, and that's regarding Convention of States or Article 5 Convention on term limits. Committee, any questions or objections to introduction of that bill? Seeing none, that's introduced. Any others? Seeing none, we'll move on to our first order of business today. Second order of business
Chairman,
will be...
a point of order.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Senator Clifford, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 5 of my colleagues here today, all ophthalmologists. I'd like you to stand as I call your name. Irina Patel from Wichita, Jennifer Burgoyne, also from Wichita, and you can sit. We have a father and son team, Lee Weiner from Salina and his dad, Gary Weiner. They look just alike, except for the hair. And we have Dr. Sam Amstutz from Wichita. Thanks for being here.
Welcome, federal and state affairs, and to Kansas Day at the Capitol is excellent. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other points of personal privilege? Seeing none, now we'll move on. But we will, after our confirmation hearing, work Senate Bill 5, just so you know what's coming up. Okay, we're going to open the confirmation hearing on Colonel Carlin Williams and his advancement to Brigadier General. And I'd like to invite General Schneider to come up and introduce Colonel Williams. General Schneider, welcome to Federal and State Affairs.
Joint staff, and thank you. And I'm here for the Adjutant General who's traveling today on another mission. But I do have the distinct pleasure to introduce Colonel Williams, who is nominated to replace Brigadier General Anthony Mohat, who is retiring after more than 35 years of honorable service, and become the Assistant Adjutant General, Army Commander of the Kansas Army National Guard. Colonel Williams is a proud fourth-generation Kansan and a graduate of Washburn Rural High School. He is exceptionally qualified to lead the Kansas Army National Guard, having served on active duty with the 82nd Airborne Division, where he deployed twice to Afghanistan and once to Iraq. He then left active duty and joined the Kansas Army National Guard, serving in positions of increasing responsibility to include commander of the 2nd Combined Arms Battalion, 137th Infantry Regiment, and the commander of the 635th Regional Support Group as a colonel, where he supervised over 1,000 soldiers. He deployed an additional 2 times with the Kansas Army National Guard. For the last year, Colonel Williams has served as the director of the Joint Staff, or Joint Operations, J3, for the Kansas National Guard, where he is responsible for leading the Directorate of Military Support in managing all aspects of the National Guard for domestic operations. His incredible professional experiences of leading soldiers in deployments, leading to training at home and seamlessly integrating the Kansas National Guard forces and responses with local, state, and national partners make him an ideal leader to take the helm of the Kansas Army National Guard. Colonel Williams has served his country and the state honorably for nearly 3 decades and is the right leader at the right time to continue his service as Brigadier General in the Kansas National Guard. Thank you for your enduring support of the Kansas National Guard, and thank you for considering this nomination. And with that, I'll introduce Carlin.
Thank you, General, and welcome to Federal and State Affairs, Colonel Williams. Go ahead with your testimony.
Good morning. I am Colonel Carlin Williams, and thank you for taking the time to conduct this confirmation hearing for the appointment to Brigadier General in the Kansas Army National Guard. It is truly an honor to be here today. I would also like to thank the Adjutant General and Governor Kelly for nominating me and having the trust and confidence in my continued service. Additionally, I'd like to express the gratitude to soon-to-be Brigadier General Schneider for introducing me here today. As for my personal history, I grew up in Kansas and have spent most of my life here. My family lineage dates back 4 generations to a farm in Yates Center, Kansas that remains in the family today. My parents grew up here, met at Emporia State, graduated from K-State, and some moved away for some time and then moved back when I was 4. I graduated from Washburn Rural High School, I attended Washburn University, and I enlisted in the Army Reserves as a combat medic in 1996 while still attending high school. I conducted my drills at the VA hospital here in Topeka. I left Kansas to attend Texas Christian University on an Army ROTC scholarship and commissioned as an infantry officer in May of 2001. During my active duty career, I served in the 82nd Airborne Division as a platoon leader, company executive officer, and battalion adjutant. I deployed 2 times to Afghanistan and once to Iraq. I then commanded in the 1st of the 48th Infantry Regiment before joining the Kansas Army National Guard in 2007. My wife, Letha, who could not be here today, also served on active duty as well as joined the Kansas Army National Guard in 2007. As a dual military couple and traditional guardsmen, raising a young family, we grew to love the organization, the mission, and the people. Military service is truly a significant part of our family identity. While my wife took off the uniform in 2009, I continued to serve in multiple organizations across the state. I deployed as the executive officer of 4-6 CAV, Kansas Agribusiness Development Team, to Afghanistan, and the commander of the 2nd Combined Arms Battalion, 137th Infantry Regiment. And then as the 635th Regional Support Group Commander, I oversaw more than 1,000 Kansas Guardsmen deploy in support of state and federal missions, both within the United States and overseas. For the last year, I have served as the J3, focused on our domestic mission and on our integration with local, state, and federal partners to serve our communities in times of need. Outside of the military, I've been working in healthcare IT for the same company for almost 18 years. I supported the digital conversion of medical imaging across 7 states, including Kansas. As a leader within my organization, I've worked closely with the military health system and the Department of Veterans Affairs to ensure efficient delivery of medical imaging services to their patients. Today, across the U.S. and Canada, my team supports more than 100 hospitals, ensuring that their medical imaging software is secure and operational. So reflecting on my military career, I've been blessed with a diversity of experiences, from hunting down adversaries dedicated to harming our way of life to working with sustenance farmers in Afghanistan. I have done everything from training initial entry soldiers on day 1 in the military to conducting battalion live fire training and brigade maneuvers across the National Training Center. I have led a small, dedicated team of 8 all the way up to a brigade of 1,800. I've worked with sister services, partner nations, but the one thing that I am most blessed with are the relationships I have made with the men and women who volunteer to serve our nation. I stand here today seeking your approval to continue to serve our state and the nation and the great men and women in uniform. The leadership of the Kansas National Guard has invested in me over my career, providing opportunities to further my military education and entrusting me with leadership and organizations both here and abroad. Those experience and the mentorships that I have had more than prepare me for a brigadier general in the Kansas Army National Guard. I am committed to the organization and will leverage my experience to mentor the next generation, lead the organization through changing dynamics of our complex world, and continue to ensure we have a manned force that is ready to respond to the state and the nation. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Colonel. Committee, I'll open it up to questions for the Colonel about any of his experiences or any comments. Senator Dietrich.
Well, it would be my pleasure to make the first comment because he graduated from my high school, Washington Rural High School, but I wasn't
very
there
good.
yet. So, so I'm very, very proud of that. And we do have a JROTC program there now, but there wasn't one there when he was in school. So that's pretty cool. I would just like to say I'm very honored to see you here today as a former graduate, but also, you know, your dedication and your service and your leadership are clearly you know, tantamount to everything that you've been able to accomplish to this point in time. So thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership. And I would be very honored to vote in favor of this young man. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments? Senator Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel, in fairness, I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, so I was just checking to see if you had your coin on you.
I do not, sir.
Okay, so you owe me. When did you, I'm airborne, by the way. When did you go through airborne training?
I attended airborne school in 2002.
How many jumps? Did you have the 6 static line or?
Well, I also I had the honor and privilege to jump in Ranger School, and then when I was stationed at Fort Bragg. Now, those years we were deployed quite a bit, so I only have a handful of jumps, not as many as I would have liked to have.
I appreciate what you did.
Thank you.
We all gave some and some gave all, so thanks for your service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Committee, any other questions or comments? Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to echo the comments from my colleagues. I'm sorry I didn't have an opportunity to meet you yet. Read through your information, very impressive, stellar background.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any others? I just have one, and we kind of discussed this in my office. I mean, with regard to what you see as your mission going forward as a brigadier general, and some of the needs that you see in the Guard, and if you could just comment on that briefly.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. I think my mission, my number one mission, is to ensure that we have a manned and trained Kansas Army National Guard. We have been growing the force over the last couple years, and our goal is to grow the Kansas Army National Guard to over 5,000. That allows us to have the force structure that we have manned and equipped and ready. So taking care of making sure that we have that force is number one priority. Number two is making sure that everybody is trained and ready. We live in a very dynamic world, and the demands of the Army National Guard are continuous. And so we need to make sure that those folks that are not only there, but they are prepared and ready for whatever is asked of them, whether it comes from the state or the nation.
And retention is always top of the line, too.
Absolutely. Retention goes hand in hand with recruiting. It's that strength number is not only getting people to join, but making sure that they want to stay and do stay. We don't lose that experience before they are ready to hopefully have a long career like myself and retire after 30 years.
Committee, any other questions or comments? Senator Faust-Godot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know I had to say something. So do you ever still network with Lee Taffanelli?
As a great question, I would say in our military career, our paths have crossed. So he was my brigade commander at one point in time, and then obviously was the adjutant general when I was, going up in the ranks. So yes, our paths do cross, and at numerous events, yes.
Senator Clifford, something else?
You permit me a follow-up?
Absolutely.
Chairman? Thank you, sir. You know, you're going to go to work for General Vernerde, who I would call nerdy. I'm just wondering, I was Cliff. Do you have a call sign?
In the Army, our call signs follow the units. So we don't get assigned at a pivotal point in your training where you get a call sign and it follows you through your career. So I do not have a call sign that has followed me through.
Follow-up, and your wife's service was in what area?
My wife was a nuclear biological chemical officer, so served that on active duty, and then she carried that over into the National Guard before she hung up the uniform to focus on raising a family.
Thank you. I'm going to call you airborne. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't have a Navy call sign. They call us weather guessers or something. So, and by the way, I grew up in Burlington, not very far from Yates Center, where you have a family farm, a pretty area of Kansas. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony and the answers, and we will close the confirmation hearing on Colonel Williams, and we will hold the vote on that tomorrow.
Thank you very much, sir.
And congratulations. Committee will now turn our attention to Working Senate Bill 5. And to refresh our memory, I'll have Jason give us a very quick overview of that fairly short bill. Jason?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Senate Bill 5 is the bill amending the statute on the Transparency in Revenues Underwriting Elections Act, KSA 25-2436. Current law prohibits election officials from accepting monies from individuals or organizations for the conducting of elections. The bill would also add a prohibition on accepting any federal monies for not only conducting elections, but also conducting election-related activities such as voter registration and voter assistance. Those monies could be used if they are approved by the legislature or other state law for use, but only as appropriated, only for the purposes for which those monies were appropriated by the federal government.
Thank you, Jason. Committee, any questions? Senator Fausto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, so the process of approval of those funds are usually have the legislature approved it, or is it, what's the process from the Secretary of State's office?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this isn't every time, but often is the case, federal funds will be dispersed to an agency, and the agency would have that go into a special fund, and then under the appropriations bill, that fund would have a no-limit appropriation, and when that bill is then enacted by the legislature, then the expenditure of the funds from that no-limit fund would be authorized.
Any other questions? Senator Clifford.
Mr. Chairman, I initially had concerns about this bill because I wondered about us employing federal funds like to buy election equipment, things like that. But I felt very, very reassured by the Secretary of State's office yesterday. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, you know, this is sort of in response, well, to the executive order, but, you know, in some response, in the prior election, Mark Zuckerberg had infused a lot of money into counties for the same sort of thing, and we passed a bill prohibiting that sort of activity, so this sort of piggybacks on that. Committee, any other questions? Any amendments? Senator Francisco?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I again apologize for a conceptual amendment that I would like the committee to consider. And that would be, and of course would appreciate any comments from our reviser, but that would be to add the wording on line 33 before the period, but excluding election security, or excluding expenditures on election security. I was I noted in the testimony from the Secretary of State that they thought that that would be excluded, But after hearing the response yesterday, I think we would want to specifically exclude that.
Committee, any questions or comments on the conceptual amendment on line 33? Basically, if we could, it would say voter registration and voter assistance, comma, excluding, or Jason, if you have it, kind of an idea of what it would read.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So the two lines would read, for any election-related activities, including but not limited to voter registration and voter assistance, but excluding election security expenditures.
Sounds good. Committee, any comments or questions on that? Senator Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wondered if the bill carrier had any thoughts about this conceptual amendment.
You know, I think obviously yesterday when we discussed this, you know, election security is an important thing. I don't think that would have a huge bearing on the underlying bill. I think the intent of the underlying bill would still be fine as long as we. And I just, maybe I can have Clay come up and just make sure that I know you don't have Brian here with you today, Clay. Do you have any last minute comments on whether or not that would impact what the intent of the bill would be?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think the conceptual amendment would have any impact on the intent of the bill, which is to keep federal money from impacting things like voter registration, get out the vote, voter assistance, and election security by local law enforcement. It's outside our purview, but I'm aware they get federal money, and it may be used in part to help a county with cybersecurity, for instance, that also affects the county clerks.
That's what I was wondering, if there's federal money that's already coming down, identify, and I guess it would be specifically for that.
And Mr. Cassidy told me he's aware, again, this is outside of our area, that some law enforcement grants will say, here's money, but 3% must be used for election security. And I'm just not sure how that works out. But in our world, there's administration and security are two distinct areas.
I suspect, you know, that would bypass the legislative approval process if that were included in this. And I guess it would be kind of, you know, that would be the only concern I would have. Senator Murphy?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it seems to me like this whole thing was about funneling money from a federal source, using it as a back door to get into something, and I don't think that's really an issue here with this. So I don't know. It's not like I'm against the amendment. I just don't know it's necessary.
Okay. Any other comments? Senator Blue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And maybe this is because I'm house trained, but I appreciate the intent, but I do not support conceptual amendments. And so I just would like to see it in writing and talk to the Secretary of State's office. So I will be opposing the amendment. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, you may move your amendment. Senator Francisco? Oh, yeah, and if there's a second, after the motion. Senator Francisco moves, second by Senator Fasquedo. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? No. I think the noes have it. So we're back on the bill. Any other final questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion on Senate Bill 5? Senator Murphy?
Thank you, Chairman. I move that we pass this favorably out of committee.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Senator Blue. So a motion by Senator Murphy to pass Senate Bill 5 out favorably, seconded by Senator Blue. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries, and Senate Bill 5 has been approved to advance to the Senate floor. That is it. Tomorrow, we do have a hearing on Senate Bill 38, I believe. And that will be all of our work for this week. And we won't be meeting on Friday. So thank you for your work, committee. And with that, we're adjourned. To Angela.